Hey, it's Kevin Lawn with the New Warehouse Podcast here at MODEX 2020. We're at the New Warehouse Podcast booth. I'm now joined by Vince Martinelli. He is the head of product and marketing for Right Hand Robotics. You may remember Vince. We talked to him back at ProMat last year. I guess it was shorter than a year ago. So a lot of things have been happening with Right Hand Robotics over the past year. So we're going to check in with him and see what's new since ProMat. And they won a big award at ProMat too. So
Yes.
So we'll see how things have grown for them since then. So Vince, welcome to the show. How are you?
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I'm fine.
Yeah. How are you enjoying MODEX so far?
So far, so good. Of course, there's all the travel concerns and so
Right.
on, and we're, like everyone here, learning to do the MODEX bump.
I know, we just did
instead of a
a
handshake.
couple bumps,
Yeah.
when we came in the booth here.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us, give us a little background maybe for some newer listeners about Right Hand Robotics, just what you guys do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, at Right Hand Robotics, we make a data-driven robotic piece picking system, autonomous piece picking.
Right.
It's meant to provide predictable fulfillment for businesses like e-commerce or grocery fulfillment or
Right.
other retail. Scalable, modular. It's a simple picking machine.
Definitely, and for I guess to give some visualization through words
Yes.
here. So when we're talking about that, it's kind of like a right hand robotics. It's like an arm. It's actually picking the piece, whereas a lot of other robotics are just kind of moving the product around.
Yes.
This is actually taking and picking the each, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, I looked at some statistics recently. Worldwide e-commerce last year was $3.5 trillion,
That's insane.
according to sources.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really insane when you think that e-commerce was zero in 1995.
Right.
It's basically when it starts, right?
Yeah.
So 25 years, $3.5 trillion, right?
Yeah.
So anyways, unlike traditional store replenishment, which is pallet-based or case-based
Right.
primarily, not 100%, but e-commerce is all each picking, right?
Right.
So that's a stunning scale. It's still growing at 15% or more a
Right.
year, so it's going to double in 4 or 5 years. So all this item handling, where the shopper used to walk around the store for free and grab the item, right?
Right.
Free labor for the retailer, basically. It's getting exported off to fulfillment centers. So there's all these tasks of between the ASRS and the sortation and the pack out where product's flowing, but it's got to get touched one at a time, 24/7 around the world, right?
Definitely. And so a lot of the robotics companies, automation companies, they're really focused on moving that product to where it needs to be to get picked. But you guys are kind of some of the first to actually do the actual physical piece picking
Yes.
with the robotic arm, right? So,
Yes.
So tell us kind of, I guess maybe how did that kind of come about? How did you guys figure out that technology, and that kind of eventually led you to win the award at ProMat last year too, right?
So our founding team started as researchers in grasping technology, robotic grasping. Some of these guys have been doing it for 10 or more years,
Right.
deep research and so on. And around 2012, 2013, they participated in a DARPA challenge driven by the military's interest in finding robotic solutions to deal with roadside explosives, right?
Right.
And so the competition was a series of tasks where who could make a gripper that could grab a key off of a table or turn a doorknob or pick a basketball and all these different things, right? So the guys who would go on to found Right Hand Robotics had a gripper design that had a few ideas baked into it. Under actuated fingers, meaning you're not trying to control every movement. You allow some compliance, so the fingers can rotate a little bit. They have some torsional flexibility. The bio-inspiration for the gripper is raptors, birds of prey.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting,
if you're primarily just going to grab things,
Right.
but you don't need to walk on this, on the fingers, and you don't need to, do all the other things people do with their hands and feet, right? So you simplify the problem. You try to allow as much tolerance and flexibility. So if you don't grab things perfectly, you can keep going. You still get them, right? So there are several ideas they put in there. It was around that time that Amazon started sponsoring the picking challenge. So there was some interest in piece picking. Our founders got introduced to folks who had been in automation field, including guys like Mick Mounts, who founded Kiva Systems. He's currently on our board of directors, right?
Right.
So after talking to Mick and others, they said, hey, we got this cool gripping technology, but we think we want to do a business, no idea what to do. They said, well, you should look at material handling, warehouses, e-commerce. That's the unsolved problem, the holy grail, of getting a robot to grab the items, right? So that started the company. We're about 5 years old now, 70 people. As you know, last year we introduced Right Pick 2.
Right.
It's our second generation of product. The gripper itself's on the 5th commercial generation.
Okay.
And of course, we're already laying the groundwork for the newer ones, right?
Right.
But yeah, so this year, from last year to this year, Right Pick 2, which debuted at ProMat, is now out in the field. It's what we're showing in the booth this year, but it's also at all the production sites.
Okay.
And so that's very exciting. It had more processor power, because you got to do all this image processing in the background.
Right.
So there's some high-end.
Because it's actually recognizing what it needs to pick, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And for that, the vision system is based on the RealSense technology, which they came out in the last couple of years, and have really helped. You'll see a lot of RealSense cameras around the show here today. Many of the, it's a wonderful, flexible vision camera that one can use, right? So anyways, we've been working on, we're always working on the same things, right?
Yeah.
Increasing the range of items we can pick at high rate, high reliability, 3 R's, and doing it by combining the hand, the vision, or the eyes, and coordinating them together as effectively as possible, right? So these two ideas. So last fall, let's see, we announced, we'd previously announced a project in Japan.
Okay.
With a company called Paltac Corporation.
Okay.
Paltac is the largest wholesaler of consumer packaged goods in Japan.
Oh,
every day they're shipping to every convenience store in Japan. It's a huge business, multi-billion dollars. So we have been working with them through some early trials, through some bake-offs, through a brownfield pilot project and so on, to get an integrated system they could put in the new Greenfield distribution center.
Right.
That opened last October,
and
has been kind of scaling and ramping up over the past few months. So this year we have actually some videos in our booth of showing multiple robots in the facility picking items and at scale.
Yeah.
One of the big challenges in Japan is if you make even a cosmetic blemish to the outer package of a product, it's unsellable. So things that we wouldn't bat an eye at if you got it shipped to your house, in Japan, the retailer the wholesaler even will say, that doesn't pass my quality level.
Their quality standards are super high.
It's very high, right? So, the integration there added some new functionality, different ways. We grab sometimes with just the suction, just the finger, or all of the above, depending upon the package type. And that information is coming from the WMS to our system, basically saying, pick this item, but pick it extra gentle because it's kind of a flimsy package.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Very smart.
Yeah. So that's been fun. You mentioned, actually, so with the Japan project, we opened an office in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Actually set up an entity in Japan late last year.
Okay.
And then with projects in Europe, we now have a small office in Europe. We just did a press release on that a week or so ago.
Okay.
Again, we were hoping to be at LogiMat this year, but with that being canceled, we had to sort of adjust our plans, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and partners, I think you and I were talking earlier about some of the partnerships.
Yeah, I saw, I was over at Manhattan booth talking to them, and I saw that you guys have a robot there.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. The folks at Manhattan, I think, recognizing that both mobile robots and picking robots, this new class of automation is emerging. They want to make sure that they're investing time and effort so that the various software packages they offer for guys who run warehouses can communicate, interact, and there's API connections to these different systems. So last spring, we became one of the inaugural members of this Manhattan Automation Network, which is intended to basically give their customers and others confidence that if you want to buy a robot, you can trust that it's going to be able to feed data up to the WMS, take pick instructions from the WMS, and so on and so forth, right? So, it's an important thing for us and others. Bringing new automation to the warehouse industry, to fulfillment, and so on, material handling. It's if you take our robot and put it in the middle of the warehouse, well, there's still all these other systems. There's layers of software. It's 10 to 20 football field size facility, right? So as much as we'd love to have everyone design all of that around our robot, it's just not the way it works, right?
It's not going to happen.
So we have to be as simple to integrate, as plug and play as possible. This is why we're open to partners and relationships with integrators and software providers and so on.
Definitely. So talk to us too a little bit about, talk about the partnerships and, all these other different systems that are working around each other and doing all these different things in the warehouse. But, one of the big things I think that I'm taking away from MODEX this year is seeing the partnerships, but also the collaboration. So So how is some kind of collaboration with you guys, how is that helping you think the industry overall kind of progress in the robotics field?
Yeah, I think if you look at, again, the pathway for how technology gets to the end user, the retailer or the organization running the warehouse, right? Again, at some level, they can't have 10 disparate software systems in the facility working independently, right? So it has to have kind of a well thought out layered structure to it. Okay. And similarly with the automation, how there's actually a layer where we'll sometimes take a simple digital feed from a piece of automation. I'll give you an example. If we're going to pick an item to put onto a sorter, onto a tilt tray sorter, well, we need to know if an empty tray is coming by. Right, so a person, if you or I were standing there doing that induction task, I can see an empty tray from a non-empty tray. Now the robot, at the moment, our robot is looking into the tote. It's trying to figure out how to pick an item and so on. It's succeeded. It scans a barcode. It tells the WMS I'm holding a bottle of water, and it wants to be. And now it needs to know an empty tray is coming. So we'll often get a feed from the sorter itself because it has sensors that are checking to see which trays are empty and which aren't. So we'll be told, here comes an empty tray. We know how far away it is. And then we time it so we place it on the tray as it moves by without hitting any other item on any other tray. So the arm's got to get in, let the item go and get out and hit the target. So there's a lot of complexity. So there's kind of a machine level communication and integration that happens on. And then our system, if you look, we used to say in a northbound communication, up to the higher levels of software, we're getting information. Pick an item, we send back a barcode, we say success, we set it in the right place like you wanted, and we're ready for the next mission. So there's a lot of communication and data flowing in a couple of ways there.
All right, very interesting stuff. So now, at MODEX, I don't think you can walk one aisle here without seeing some kind of robot. So I mean, the technology is here, automation is here, robotics is here, without a doubt. Now, what are you getting as feedback from customers? And how would you say the feedback from customers has kind of changed even over just the last year from ProMat? Like, what, are they coming at a different approach to robotics now?
Well, I think so. I think, again, most people, and again, if you roll the clock back to the, what's the word? The big event in 2012. Robots, Kiva Systems was bought by Amazon. And prior to that, not too many folks had robots. Some had a Kiva system, but there weren't many other things like that out there. And we would come to this show because I was part of that company, and I tried to convince people to buy robots. It was hard, right?
I'm sure you had some people that were scared of robots.
Especially 10 years ago, right? 10 or 13. I don't know. I joined that company 13 years ago. And it was a crazy idea, right? So now everybody says, "Oh, I need and want robots too." I think, But then the question is, well, how would you use them? What's the best approach, right? Is it AMRs? That solves a lot of things. Is it picking robots, depalletizers? I mean, there's lots of choices, right? So we've been another thing we have at the show here this week. We recently wrote up a white paper, right? And it tries to say, hey, if I were the customer, how would I want to think about this? So first thing is understanding why and you want a robot and what you think you're going to do with it and what do you feel the benefit is. What are you shooting for? Is it just that you can't find and hire enough people to do some simple task like either building a pallet or picking an item or whatever? If so, okay, focus on that, because between wanting a robot and actually successfully deploying them, our customer is going to have to get their IT guys on board, the finance guys on board, the operations people, safety, cybersecurity, whatever, right? All of these things are before the system is live in production.
You got a lot of stuff going into it.
So if you have a new innovation group and they get excited about robots and they do a lab test, that doesn't mean if the other guys aren't bought in that it goes any farther, right? So I think so our little white paper says, hey, step one, if you're a retailer or an e-commerce firm and you're thinking about robots, we kind of focus on piece picking, but it's true of everything. First order of business, understand why you want to do it. Okay. The second thing for piece picking, look at the items you need to handle. We can go up to a couple kilograms. We can pick things up to, 1.5 feet on a side and down to a centimeter or two minimum dimension, right? So we can pick a lot of things that are in the sweet spot for e-commerce. Probably 90% of the stuff sold every day fits in that realm, right? But if you have bigger items, toaster ovens, right? Our one-handed gripper thing, it's not going to pick a toaster oven.
Can't hold
right?
that, yeah.
So you have to decide, is that going to go through a different flow in the warehouse? If someone buys a toaster oven in a book, do I need to put them in the same box, or are they going to ship separately? So you got to think about the material flow, the item set, material flow, how you're going to design the physical space, and the software integration. So we wrote up these thoughts in a white paper and said, to anyone listening, if they're interested, they can download it and so on. But it's a little guide to maybe how to think about your first robot automation project, focused toward piece picking, but some of the rules apply to the others as well. So I think there seem to be enough proof points and success stories out there that, again, most people are getting over the hump.
Yeah.
And now it's doesn't do any of us any good, customers or vendors, if projects die or fail or stall out for whatever reasons, or fail to meet expectations, right? Understanding the throughput rates and the kind of the payback models and so on and so forth is all related as well. So anyways, becoming more of a real business than a science project, right?
Yeah. Instead of more just this research thing and then people being like, oh, that's cool, but then how do I use it? So I think that's really interesting too, to see how, that's kind of just over the past couple of years even, like how it's grown, and now customers are actually really kind of adopting it, and now they're more educated, I would say, on it, definitely, and they're looking for how can they now use it instead of like, oh, it's just cool.
Well, we get asked about, in fact, in our booth we're showing things like data dashboards, and so when a customer has 10 or 20 robots working in the facility, they want to see, all right, how do I monitor and manage performance? How do I know if a bot is having a problem? I don't want to have a person standing next to each one, right? So we have a control center functionality. So a person sitting at a table like we are here with a monitor can see, oh, robot number 5 had a problem. Maybe I can watch the last pick. We have like a video replay function, and the replay official, and then you can say, oh no, that was a success. You hit a button on the screen and you send it along, or you say, oh, that's a failure, or maybe it's a mechanical issue. I could dispatch someone to go over there and deal with it. But you let the robot run autonomously, pick as much as it can, and then again you have data and remote management functionality to help. In the production environment, every time you lose a few seconds, it's gone forever. So you want to be able to resolve things as quickly as possible and keep going.
Okay, definitely. So thanks so much for coming by. How can we find out more about Right Hand Robotics?
Well, let's see. You can always follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter. Come to our website. It's righthandrobotics.com. And Kevin, I thank you very much for having me here today.
Yeah. And the LinkedIn, I would say, I always see you popping up that there's some kind of news about Right Hand Robotics. So you guys are definitely doing a lot of stuff out there.
We try. We try to, and again, we bias. Hopefully, the things we publish have some value and are interesting. We can always argue that, but we try.
Yeah. All right, so we'll post all that information on newwarehouse.com as well, so people can access it. So Vince, thank you so much for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it.